How many meals a day? Well, if we look at times of old, we'll know that the poor ate whenever they could afford to, and that those that were wealthy ate whenever they would get rid of their indigestion because they've overeaten. So we can't look at how many meals a day based on historical data of that sort. In order to understand how many meals a day that would be best for us, we must distinguish between hunger and appetite. Okay. Hunger is a physiological need. Probably 99%, 98%, 95% of Americans have never really experienced hunger. Okay. Appetite, on the other hand, is a learned food choice. Now, this only occurs in humans and some of our domesticated pets, but it does not occur naturally, appetite. So, for example, you could have an appetite for cockroaches, you could have an appetite for cheeseburgers, you can have an appetite for cigarettes, an appetite for bizarre things. Live monkey brain, depending on where you come from, whatever kinds of appetites are prevalent in your culture. So, appetites are learned, and hunger is a physiological need. Okay, how do we satisfy them? Well, hunger is easily satisfied. A small amount of real food will satisfy hunger. Appetite is never satisfied, which is why we eat when we're hungry, we drink when we're drunk, we smoke instead of breathe. You know, that's appetite. Okay, so distinguishing that, we'll realize that how many meals a day must be based on the concept of hunger. Okay, so when do we get hungry? This is a difficult issue for us Americans, since we've probably never experienced hunger. Rarely. You know, we eat a big meal at 7 o'clock at night, and then we snack at 10 o'clock at night, and we go to bed, and then we feel some gastric irritation at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we misinterpret that as hunger. So we run in and quickly stick something down our throat, and we ameliorate that symptom and say, aha, now I'm no longer hungry. So what we misinterpreted as hunger was really gastric irritation from improper eating the day before. Okay, so we don't know what hunger is. Hunger is not a painful experience. You don't go, oh, I'm hungry. You know, hunger is a longing, a sweet longing. Okay, all physiological requirements, when they first alert us with a longing. If we get to a deficit, then it becomes painful. Okay, so anyway, hunger is satisfying physiological needs. If you're going to satisfy physiological needs, you have to understand what hunger is based on. It's based on the proper physiology of the tube. The tube begins at the lips and ends at the anus. The tube is 22 to about 30 feet, depending on the height of the individual. Okay, we're talking again about humans. Imagine this tube. You got chewing, salivating, swallowing, and then it's going down through the esophagus. When it gets to the stomach, there are processes that need to occur. There's certain acids that are secreted. There are enzymes that are secreted. There's churning. And then there's a sphincter that will allow only a certain amount of that chyme, it's now been turned into chyme, to enter into the small intestines. Once it gets in the first part of the small intestines, which is the duodenum, and the duodenum will do further breakdown of this substances, and it has to be let in slowly. It can't go in too quickly, otherwise it will overwhelm the ability of the duodenum to do what it needs to do. So there's a sphincter between the stomach and the small intestines. Now, as that food is processed and modified, it gets to the jejunum, which is the second part of the small intestines, and that's where we see a lot of absorption of the final end products occur. And then it gets to the ileum, which is the final aspect of that absorption. And then there's an ileocecal sphincter, another sphincter, which only allows that chyme, which has now been processed further, to enter into the colon. And then the colon, remember, is going to absorb some water, about 10 to 15% of the water. And so it's got that job. Plus, it has to, the food has to, the chyme at that point, which now is becoming feces, has to sit around a little bit longer so that certain bacteria can do their work with it to produce vitamin K and other nutrients. And then it's expelled. Well, clearly, obviously, in order for this whole system to function appropriately, you do not want to have chewing going on while you're having your stomach digesting, while you have your all three parts of your small intestines working, and your colon trying to do what it's doing. If you have that going on, what's going to happen is so much energy is going to be required to keep this tube doing all these multiple tasks that it's going to use up energy reserves. And in fact, look at the person who's eaten 3 or more meals a day, sitting there at the end of dinner. They can't keep their eyes open. They're bloated. They're passing gas from all ends. And this is the result. Basically, I don't know if you all are old enough to remember the old-fashioned pinball machines, but if you did something wrong, it would go tilt, turn off. And that's basically what happens to our digestive system. It goes tilt, and it turns off. So, how many meals a day? Well, we probably shouldn't stick anything in our mouth until what we stuck in previously has gotten to the point where it's either has been expelled or is about to be expelled. That would allow for the most efficient digestion and assimilation of the substances. Otherwise, we run into inefficiency and we start getting backed up, and we call this constipation, which begins the march to death.